Hey, new filmmakers, I'm Nick Bodmer.
I'm Griffin Hammond, and for Halloween, we're going to take a look at our good friend's house and how they used a projector to projection map this cool Halloween show on the side of their house.
Also, Apple announced some new iPhones, and we're going to talk a little bit about what new photo and video features they have.
I need you to tell me about them because I did not pay attention to their latest
I don't
announcement.
understand how you cannot watch the Apple events. They're like, I clear my calendar. I'm a crazy person, but...
This podcast is not usually an interview podcast, but today we're going to call up our friends Brett and Susie who went to high school with us.
I've known Brett not longer than I've known you, and I've known you for a long time, sir. A long time. Because we're old.
Yeah.
But the stuff they've done with their house is freaking amazing. Like, I heard they were starting this project, and it sounded like maybe they were biting off a little more than they could chew. But the end result is fantastic. I've been really impressed, and it's been fun to watch the process move along.
They did a whole like wire mapping thing of their home to like kind of mask it out, and then they just built this whole video on top of it in After Effects, and it works really well. So
yeah, I think like two months ago we got like a message like, "Hey, what's a good projector that would go on the house?" We're like, "What?" And
yeah, they've moved faster than almost every one of my projects.
Well, yeah, that's because you do 15 projects at a time.
Yeah.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Are you running the show right now?
Yes.
Yeah, we have one more show at 10 o'clock. So every 15
Is it
minutes.
an hourly thing?
No, it goes every 15 minutes. The show goes off, and in between there's some like filler music and sounds with little, animations.
Yeah.
But the serious stuff every quarter hour.
Yeah, we started off every half hour, but the street that we're on, cars can kind of back up on it, and there's only a couple of prime.
Too much excitement?
Yeah.
Are there
That's
people
awesome.
watching it right now?
They probably won't start showing up for another couple more minutes.
Yeah.
There's usually not a lot of people at the 10 o'clock show time.
It's funny because
No, I think you should call it a show. I like that.
Didn't you start this just a couple days ago?
Last Friday?
It's been a little under a week. So we, Susie originally posted it in the neighborhood. So for the first couple of days, it was people from the neighborhood coming to check it out, and just today she posted it to the local
moms group on Facebook.
Got 250 likes already.
Yeah.
I just love that you already have an audience for this.
That's amazing.
We have regulars, people who come almost every night to come check it out.
Yeah.
Little kids love it.
Yeah.
So what can you tell us about the production? So we know you guys have been working on this for a good bit of time. How did the idea get started, I guess is the better question.
Because I'm obsessed with Halloween. I have no passion in filmmaking. I have every passion in Halloween.
Well, you built that gorgeous pumpkin arch.
Yeah.
Every year I get about one project assigned. She's the idea person, and then she assigns the project, the dream to make a reality. She does the design work on oftentimes, and I'm just the manual labor more often than not. But starting off last year with a little bit of window projection, and she's always wanted to do one of those whole house projections, and I was staunchly against it for a number of years. I just too much, didn't want to do it.
Only crazy.
So this is the first time you've used a projector, that kind of projector.
That kind of projector. We did inside projections last year where you project onto a screen onto your window, and then they do it from the outside. And those were just really the kind of cheapy projectors that you can buy at like Home Depot and all for Halloween decorations and such.
Mm-hmm.
So tell me about, I tried to teach you, Brett, a little bit of Premiere, because that's what I'm comfortable in. But then you made the switch to After Effects, and now Susie has taken over the project, right?
Well, in After Effects, but there's a few things that like he does better than I do. I was just familiar. I don't know After Effects, but when I was in high school, I was friends with some people who really liked doing film, including my older sister. And being a little sister, I would look over her shoulder and there were things in that program I was familiar that looked similar,
Right.
and then when we decided to do this, we naturally turned to Google to teach us how to do it. And there's this one guy who has these kind of how-to videos, and he used After Effects, so it was easier for me to manipulate that way.
Griffin, take note of that. How-to videos on the internet could be helpful. Who would have ever thought?
There's an audience for them.
After Effects is like no joke. Like, that's legit stuff. Like, that's hard.
It certainly helped that we wanted, you want to do a thing. How do you do a thing? Someone's made a YouTube video about how to do the thing. And they click here. You got to drop linear key onto that particular line, and then you chroma key out the color you don't want. And you're like, okay, I wouldn't have known how to do this by myself. I wouldn't have even thought to play around in this particular drop-down menu, but point you where to go and kind of give you a rough idea and then play around with it a little bit.
And admittedly, we have different styles of approaching it. Like, Brett has to know the step for step to do it, and I'm just like, but yeah, I'm just going to click a bunch of buttons and it'll eventually work. And
well, that's
then
what I'm
I
wondering
have
is
to do it
how much
again.
of this was you knew what you wanted, you looked up how to do it on After Effects, and how much, like, have you discovered anything in After Effects that particularly inspired you and made you try some cool effect?
The facade on the house changes in time to the beat of the song, the This Is Halloween song. And it's inspired us to work and do a little bit more work next year, because the effect is kind of neat right now, but the way that we figured out how to do it is to set I'm blanking on what the term is, those markers.
Keyframes?
Markers.
Yeah, there you go. And assign colors to them, but the colors blend from one to the other. And Susie was going, there has to be a way to just hard cut to these colors to make it more dramatic. And a quick Google search didn't solve that problem. So there's a lot of things I'm like, I wish we could do that, and I'm sure there's a way. You made the moon move across the house, which is pretty neat, the way you made it kind of curve and things like that. But was that just clicking around and figuring out how to do it?
Adjusting the position over time. But then I think the one thing that was helpful, because especially with the whole house projection, because you have multiple images and graphics on different parts of the house that are essentially graphics and images that we pulled from the internet, free graphics that are available, but you can't have them overlap at all. So finding how you can use the shape creator to create a whole separate map that is very close cut into that to make sure there's no overlap on it. That turned out to be useful, because also, like, there's a graphic where we raised the garage where I have to create another map inside a map in order to hide the garage from showing up in the lines above it, so it truly looks like it just disappears.
Do you ever mess around with blend modes?
Yes, my sister came out, so it helps when your sister did this for a while, and she's an artist who uses all Adobe products, and she does mixed media art projects. And she came out, and she's just like a little wizard, and we're like, we want it to look like this. And she's like, oh, well, you need to take multiple layers of pictures, and then we're going to go to this blend function, and then we're going to click this, this, and this. And we were like, oh, that looks a lot better than our original facade.
Yeah.
So it's fair to say 2021 is already in planning.
Well, we have the song, and we have some of the basic graphic, because when you look at the video, there's like these 3 pumpkins that are singing along in the top continuously throughout. So we have that part, I know, but the rest we haven't figured out.
Did you animate those pumpkins by hand to sing, or is that something that came pre-done?
That one we paid for.
That one you paid for.
That was worth paying for. I mean, I was like, that's a lot of work.
But you went a step further than just mapping these things on the house. You actually modified your house to do the projection better.
So we actually, so when the lights aren't up and you look at our house, we have opaque shower curtains over all the windows, and we took down all the shutters, so each window is its own essentially projection screen. And
which
then,
you are projecting windows onto, but like they would just get lost in your regular window.
Right, exactly, because you would see the black and the white contrast was too much that the image wouldn't project, even though, it's a really nice projector. And then over the garage, we carved out 3 circle shapes, white, and painted them white to utilize those for projection over the garage.
Because were the pumpkins just not showing up strongly enough?
Yeah, it just adds a little bit more depth and detail for it.
Little pop.
Pops a little bit.
So, like, do you have a sense of how many rounds you rendered this thing out, projected on the house, and then took it back inside and worked on it again? Like, how many versions?
There was a stage there. I mean, because the interesting thing was that we're using just my standard work notebook. It's not any sort of powerhouse visual media machine by any stretch of the imagination. So in Adobe After Effects, we're previewing at quarter quality, and so everything's pixelated. The doesn't look great, but it's enough to see a movement in a mouth, and you can line it up close enough, and then taking it outside and watching it. I mean, there was a week where we were going out every night and watching the latest version to see, did we like what we liked. I mean, this really was a project that took, I guess, about a month and a half-ish, but the work was done between 10 o'clock at night and midnight when the kids were asleep.
He was 10 and midnight, I was 10 and 2.
She was 10 and 2. I would go to bed. I was tired.
What was the render time?
Ultimately, the 30-minute version rendered in about 4 hours on my machine.
Actually doesn't sound terrible for like there's a lot going on.
There's a lot going on.
Well, I know, but Apple's got some new Macs coming out with Apple Silicon. We'll talk about that. Don't worry, and get you upgraded. Sounds like you need an iMac Pro.
Talk to his boss about that one.
And what's the? I also want to know about the box that you built.
So the box itself is a 3 feet high kind of cube, 2 feet wide, let's say, and built some shelves into it, and it houses the projector, it houses a media player, just like a $30 Amazon media player, that specifically looking for one that automatically started playing the file in the root drive of the USB so that it can get moving.
Oh, that's cool. So like you didn't want to run an HDMI cable all the way from your house.
Self-contained, yeah.
That's nice.
Yeah, so take it out every night, bring it in every night.
Yeah, and the FM transmitter was key because we are in a rural subdivision, and you don't want to piss off the neighbors by having.
So if you're standing on the sidewalk, you hear nothing. Is that right?
No,
it's just a silent show.
We do have a small JBL speaker that's out there that if you're right by on the sidewalk, just in front of our house, you can
hear it. Okay.
I love that you thought of everything. You're like, every audience, however they're going to consume this, we need to reach everyone.
Well, we originally weren't going to do we actually had a quieter, we just had the projector speaker going, but in the box, you can imagine it's super muffled.
Yeah.
And we were like, that's all right, nobody's going to need it, but we ended up, because it's such a nice October, we actually have a lot of people who just kind of walk up on the sidewalk and sit on the sidewalk to watch the show. So we realized we had to augment the original plan.
And so what's the projector you're using? I'm trying to imagine. You mean the front of a house is pretty big. Do you know how big you're projecting this image?
Suburbia cookie cutter 2-story house. I mean, it's an Optima short throw projector, 4,000 lumens. So we were looking for something, the brighter the better.
Bright and wide.
Yep.
And what does short throw mean?
Short throw, so it means I forget exactly how to say it. It's the ratio. So usually, like some projectors, like you get, if it's a 1-to-1 ratio, for example, for every 1 foot back, it projects 1 foot wide. Mm-hmm. And so short throw, what we'll do is it'll be, for 1 foot back, it'll project 4 feet wide.
Yeah.
And so you don't have to go back as far, because if you do like a regular projector over a short throw, you'll end up with your projector across the street in the neighbor's yard.
Right.
So this one, it's really only about,
20
feet back to do our whole house, which is probably like 40 feet. Mm-hmm. 40 feet across by 50
we fired it up in the bright white tool that we used for masking out the house, drawing the lines so we could figure out where to place all the elements. First time you fired up the laptop, hooked up to the projector, it was covering the entire house, and that's the goal of building a mask around the outside of the house, is that you're not shooting light into the neighbor's windows and stuff.
I imagine even black is probably shooting something, right, in a projector, but like not too much.
No, it actually, because when we create the map, we did create the map to just the outline of our house, and when we didn't have the map, I mean, our neighbors' houses were lit up.
Yeah.
But then when you applied the map to it, there's absolutely no light going to those other the other neighbors' houses. Even like we have the pumpkin arch, which is all lit up. That is all blacked out in our map. So we don't project on the pumpkin arch or on the trees.
Is it a DLP projector, do you know?
I'm actually not sure.
Just thinking, DLP's got all those micro mirrors that would actually reflect the light away from that spot.
Oh, wow.
Could be good. I don't know.
We should I'll make sure we put like the projector you've used in the show notes and some of these resources you have as well about like how to build the box and stuff. We can put some of these in.
Mm-hmm.
So pay somebody to do it for you. There's a guy.
No, that's why I wanted to talk to you about it, because I love that you guys went very DIY and you did so much of this.
I'm like this close to buying one for Christmas.
Mm-hmm. What to do?
We had people today ask, "Are you doing it for Christmas?" And we're like, "Nope, just Halloween."
Oh, you've got it. You got all the stuff now. It's basically done.
It's cold in Christmas to go out.
Not in Vegas.
Not in Vegas.
Nick, are you talking about you want a projector as a Christmas present or to do a Christmas show?
No, to do a Christmas show. I need singing reindeer, man.
Yeah. I do want to know
I don't know.
What is some of the feedback you've gotten from neighbors?
Oh, everybody loves it. I mean, people, even in the daylight, like we're just outside playing with the kids and people are like going on today someone was just going on their afternoon jog and she just screamed out, "Everybody in the neighborhood loves your house." And then like since I posted it on Facebook, like people used to go visit our house just for our regular decorations that we have out.
Which are extensive.
But then when I posted on Facebook that we had this video, lady's like, "Oh, I drive by your house every time I drop off the kids, and I love your decorations. Now I know I gotta come at nighttime too." And everybody's loved it. That our immediate neighbors have said, "Just blast it. Like we don't care if it's going on." Because they all have little kids and they come every night to watch. So
it's one of those things where usually at 7:30 when I go to set it up, I stay out there for the first show. And as I'm sure everybody knows, once you've spent enough time with a project, you know all its little flaws, and you're unimpressed with your own work, and you're like, this isn't even that cool. But then that first 7:30 show, when there's a couple of cars where the people and they all applaud at the end of it, you're like, all right, I guess it is cool.
Yeah. It was funny. It was one of the first nights where Brett was downstairs and I was upstairs. He's like, "I think there's a crowd out there." And so we snuck around the back of our house and snuck up there to just be like,
in the crowd.
Like we had
walked up amongst the crowd, and then at the end of the show, there was probably 5 or 6 cars and a whole bunch of people on the sidewalk, and people were hopping out taking pictures. And at the end of the show, they all were honking and screaming and clapping. And so it was really rewarding in that way. And I don't get up. I'm not upset with it. Every time I'm out there, I am arrogant and proud as heck.
No, I know that feeling that Brett was describing, and I was worried for you two that you would do all this work and then people would not recognize that it was just some store-bought thing. But it sounds like people really, really appreciate it.
Some people have asked, where'd you get? They think it's something that it's just like a quick click.
Yeah.
But we're like, oh, it's a pretty intensive
custom.
You start throwing around Adobe Creative Cloud, they're like, okay.
Well, I mean, After Effects is definitely the right tool for the job, right? I mean, this is motion graphics work, and that's what After Effects is for. So
yeah.
But I mean, I've used After Effects like this much, and I remember being like, this program is hard. And I do a lot of video editing.
It's a daunting piece of software.
Yeah. So I'm impressed. I'm very impressed.
Yeah.
I think you just have to be not afraid to just randomly click.
I'm definitely afraid of that. All right, so Nick, I want you to tell me about the new iPhones that Apple has released, but first we should thank our sponsor.
Hey New Filmmakers is brought to you by Squarespace. From websites and online stores to marketing tools and analytics, Squarespace is the all-in-one platform to build a beautiful online presence and run your filmmaking business.
I was just thinking about our friends and their incredible projection mapping show on their house. I imagine they could start a Squarespace website if they wanted to build an even bigger audience, an even larger caravan this would be exactly the kind of thing that they could tell their story pretty effectively through Squarespace. It's an easy way using templates to set up a brand new site that just looks great.
Check out squarespace.com for a free trial, and when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/Griffin to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain.
All right, so iPhone 12, is that what's coming out this
iPhone
fall?
12, at some point they need to cut the numbers out, right? Doesn't it feel like it's starting to get a little ridiculous with these numbers? Like iPhone 3G, iPhone 4, okay, iPhone 5, okay, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
I can't imagine like
11?
an iPhone
Actually,
19.
there was no iPhone 9, but
right.
I digress. We went right from 8 to 10. Yes, but now we're on the iPhone 12, and this time, Griffin, sit down for me.
I'm always sitting.
Okay. Hey, last episode I did with you, you were standing in a booth. It was a very strange episode. Instead of 3 iPhones like we got last year, there are 4 new iPhones. I'm going to let that sink in.
Are they all iPhone 12s?
Yes, 4 iPhone 12s, okay? So last year we had the iPhone 11 and then 2 iPhone 11 Pros. The regular 11 Pro and the 11 Pro Max, which is the ginormous one, right? This year we have the 2 Pros, 11 Pro and 11 Pro Max. We have the iPhone 12 without the Pro, and we have an iPhone 12 mini for those people who like the smaller phones, which is cool. But let's be honest, we're pros on this in this podcast, so we are going to talk about the iPhone 12 Pros because they have.
And
all
I imagine
the
that's
cool
probably where all the new camera tech
stuff is. Exactly right. So actually, it won't take long to talk about all this, but there are a couple things I thought were interesting that I'm just going to hit you with real quick. So, unlike last year, the 11 Pro and 11 Pro Max, the big one, were exactly the same camera hardware and everything. This year, the Pro Max actually has some fairly major upgrades over the regular Pro. That's just, I assume, a function of stuff they can fit in because of the size of the device. So if you want the very best camera gear, you're going to have to look at getting the Max. I'm really torn. I've had the Max before. I want the best camera, but I don't think I can carry a phone that big. And in fact,
that's what I'm wondering. I have an iPhone 10s Max. Are these ones even bigger?
The screens are bigger, but the bezels are smaller. The end result is they're like millimeters bigger, but barely. But the screens are fairly significantly bigger. So it's going to be similar. It's going to be a similar physical size. You do get more screen. Let's see. I've got a couple things breaking this down. Let me just take a look at it so I don't tell you the wrong thing. I don't care about that.
And I actually like the design of this phone. It goes back to the I think it's the 5S kind of
the 4
shape.
and the 5 that had that kind of,
which was kind of the best iPhone.
Off. It's flat. You are not alone. A lot of people think that 5S design is the best designed iPhone ever, and these definitely harken back to that. And actually what these are is they're very similar design language to the new iPad Pros that have been coming out for the last few years. Have had this similar design, so we're pretty excited about that. Okay. So you got your regular iPhone 12s, which have upgraded cameras. They have an ultra wide and a wide lens on the iPhone 12s. When you go to the Pro, you get the third camera, which is a zoom lens, right? So you have ultra wide, wide, and telephoto, I guess is what we would call it. But they've also added a LiDAR sensor, LiDAR. Are you familiar with LiDAR?
No. I mean, I feel like I should be, but I can't tell you offhand.
You hear about it a lot in reference to self-driving cars. It shoots light out and measures how long it takes to get back and can build an incredibly accurate depth map. So the idea is this is probably for their augmented reality stuff, but it actually does bring some features to the camera. So in low light and things like that, it can use the LiDAR to get depth information for autofocus. So they're saying in low light, it will focus 6 times faster. And you can also get depth information in night mode to do that, fake blurry background thing, even in the dark. So that's
this cool. Just sounds like it'd be an improved portrait mode, because before it's based on visual information, isn't it, between the two cameras?
Yeah, exactly. The cameras
radar.
are slightly improved. So the wide lens, or kind of the normal lens that you use most of the time, has an f1.6 instead of an f1.8. It's a new lens, new 7-element lens. So just, some improvements that you expect year on year.
And that sounds like familiar. Like, it seems like every time they update these, they make the aperture they make 25% more light can get in each time, it seems like.
But then what they've done on the Max, especially with this wide camera, is they have all of these on the Pro have optical image stabilization in the lens. On the wide camera, the normal camera on the Pro Max, they have moved the image stabilization to the sensor. So, obviously the sensor is smaller, so it can move. So it's better optical image stabilization. So they're saying a full stop improvement in low light when doing handheld. So that's cool. And the sensor itself is 47% larger, which that means just significantly better low light performance. They're saying an 87% improvement in low light, light gathering.
Right.
That right there is what makes me want to go grab this camera or a phone. As you can tell, it's really a camera for me.
Well, you have an 11 right now?
I have an 11 Pro.
And you've always been the kind who likes to trade in or sell off your old gear and get the new iPhone every year.
Yeah, I get the new iPhone every year. It's silly, but it's
I think I'm on probably a 3-year cycle now. I think it was 3 years between when I got the I don't even remember which one. I think I had the 6S and then I got the 10S Max, and I'll probably hold out for another year because my phone's fine.
For me, I don't think I'll ever regret the money. These cameras get so much better year on year still, with all the new technology and computational photography that they cram in there. That I want the best pictures because my kids are little and I take a ton of photos. So
yeah.
I know it's
you have
crazy.
A tradition
Nobody
of
else
making a lot of your money back too on the sales.
Oh my gosh! Yeah, if you keep good care of your phone and sell it on Swappa or something like that, I'll probably get $650-$700 for my phone and then drop $1,100 on the new one. It's not great. It makes me feel like a jerk, but it is what it is. Some really cool video stuff though. Let me see if I can find these specs. So. The HDR stuff is still there, and you've seen that, shooting. I remember you shot a wedding or something where you had your, the iPhone shooting, and then your GH Panasonic, and just because it was a bright day, the automatic HDR really makes a fairly dramatic improvement. And they keep making that better.
Oh yeah.
But now
even on my 10S Max, it outperformed the Panasonic camera in HDR. The Panasonic camera was not doing any HDR. So by doing HDR, it was effectively able to get more dynamic range.
So for video now, in addition to just doing a little bit of HDR, it will actually capture 4K 60 footage in Dolby Vision HDR.
Oh, wow.
So it actually is, and Dolby Vision is a real HDR format. So not just taking a highly dynamic scene and compressing it nicely into an SDR video, but filming in HDR and accurately grading the scene, frame by frame, so that you can play it back on a full HDR capable set and get Dolby Vision. And in fact, you can play it back on the device. So they're saying it's the first device that can record, edit, and play back Dolby Vision all on device.
Well, that's always been cool. The biggest challenge is you could capture, so many cameras on the market are capturing more stops of dynamic range than what's possible to show on an SDR TV. But then even to show it on an HDR TV, you have to do all the grading. Yeah, that's cool that you could just shoot it and play it.
I'm really looking forward to people getting these phones in hand and kind of showing us what's really they're capable of. But just based on Apple's track record here, they do some pretty amazing stuff with the automatic capabilities of these. I think we're going to see some really tremendous video quality out of this Dolby Vision stuff. So I'm pretty excited. One final thing, going back to photography. I don't know if you know this, but you've always been able to shoot RAW photos, or at least for the last however long, you can shoot RAW on your iPhone.
Yeah, but the iOS doesn't offer it up to you very easily, but a lot of third-party apps. Halide
is the big one that people really like for taking RAW photos. But when you shoot RAW, you miss out on all of Apple's smart HDR technology, all the stuff we were just talking about that makes, it takes 10 frames and it picks the best stuff out of each and does a really nice job. So Apple's announced something called Pro RAW, which basically is a RAW format but keeps all of that Apple smart technology. And then they've created an API so that third-party programs can leverage it. What that means, I'm not sure, but the idea of keeping a lot more of that image data for the editing process, but still keeping that Apple Smart HDR technology, I think is gonna be very cool. So
yeah,
I'm excited about that too.
Do you think it's compatible with like live photo, or that's just too much going on?
I would guess it is, yeah, because all that smart technology is capable of it today. Well, okay, let me take that back. I'm guessing. I have no idea. We'll find out.
I just think there's already so much that Apple does to make photos weird.
And you get a little more. The telephoto lens is a little tighter on the Macs as well. So if you wished it was a little tighter, you get that too. And that is the lineup.
I don't think I wished that my telephoto lens was tighter.
I'm pretty happy with the telephoto lens.
I do wish that I had the ultra wide lens.
Yeah, so on the iPhone 12s, the non-Pro ones, they only have 2 lenses, and they have the ultra-wide and the wide. And I think that's probably the right call. I think for most people, those are the right 2 lenses. But I use that telephoto lens constantly. I could not live without it.
I was always fine with the field of view on the iPhone camera until Peter started running around, and now he's always too close to the camera. By the time I get the shutter off, he's like running towards me, and I always wish I had a little bit more field of view to work with.
Yes, indeed. Well, maybe it's time to upgrade.
Yeah, because I imagine actually it's probably pretty similar to like my favorite focal length here on my GH5 that I'm shooting with the 12mm, which is kind of like just a little bit awkwardly wide.
I think I had a page up that had the equivalent. I thought I did, but I lied. I don't have the equivalent focal lengths. I saw it somewhere. On the iPhone 12 Pro Max, the telephoto is 65mm equivalent, but it doesn't have it for the other ones. So I don't know what to tell you. Okay. The only other thing, HomePod Mini got announced, which sounds pretty cool, and it's cheap. I might try that out. And no new Mac information. We were kind of hoping maybe we might see that first Apple Silicon Mac, but they must be waiting to do that in its own event. So when I know something, you'll know something. And if we're done with Apple, I have a question I was going to throw out to the audience. I need a little help, unless you have any other iPhone questions.
No, fire away.
Okay, so I bought recently the Elgato Camlink 4K for using the HDMI output of my Sony camera as a webcam on my Mac. Yeah. With me so far.
This is a popular device, the Elgato.
Yeah, I had a long event today, and I was using it. Obviously, I'm not actually recording when I'm using it, right? It's just on and running. And I'm having a problem where either it's overheating and shutting down after about an hour and a half, 2 hours, or there's some sort of timeout. I don't think it's a timeout, though, because when I just click the shutter button or whatever, it doesn't come back to life. I have to turn it off and let it sit for a while. So it sounds like it's overheating. I didn't really think these Sony cameras did that. If anyone has any advice, let me know. I did realize before we recorded this podcast...
You didn't think Sony cameras did that?
I didn't, no.
They do that.
Oh, that's a thing?
Yeah.
Well, shoot. Well, then that's what it is.
Yeah.
Gets mystery solved. I was like, I thought I wasn't supposed to do that. So, I did a big presentation for a couple hundred people, and my camera turned off in the middle of it. So, oops.
And how long were you without the camera?
Basically, so it was like a 2 hour and 15-minute event. I had 20 to 30 minutes towards the end, and so my camera is off from my entire portion.
Oh, no.
I mean, I was sharing my screen, and that was, it's a Zoom, right? I'm sharing my screen. My camera was just a little box. It didn't really matter, I had my nice mic for my voiceover as I went through some slides, and then I did a tech demo.
And so at least because Zoom separates the audio and video, your audio stayed completely nice.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah. But yeah, I remember you were excited about like.
That's why I bought the Camlink 4K.
Showing off your cool lighting, your podcast setup.
And they got to see it at the beginning when we introduced ourselves, but yeah, that was a little bit of a bummer. So I should have had it when I wasn't presenting. I should have turned my camera off and let it cool off. But
yeah. So did you go
lesson learned?
Completely no camera, black screen for that 20 minutes?
Correct. Yeah. Well, I mean, again, I was sharing my desktop, so that was what most people were seeing, but they couldn't see me talk. Which is okay. Nobody wants to see my face.
You wouldn't have had the time to troubleshoot and turn another camera on or something.
No, I noticed like right before I was going live, I went, "Oh well, nothing to do about that at this point." Okay, well, thanks for solving that problem for me.
I've had now during like 2 different Zoom meetings, I'll run out of battery, and I even said that today during a meeting. And someone was like, "What do you mean your camera ran out of battery? Is it a laptop camera?" And I was like, "No, it's a."
It's hard to explain.
and then she was like, "Oh, that's why it looks so good. I didn't realize."
So what's funny? Speaking of running out of battery, we did a run through the week before, and it happened then, and I assumed I ran out of battery. So this time I had it plugged into USB-C providing power. Which I'm doing right now, and I'm still noticing the battery dropping. So apparently on this camera, plugging it in, and it shows it's plugged in, but I've lost about 20% since we've started this whole thing. So, it's not a perfect solution, but oh well.
Yeah, well, it sounds like there are many mysteries here. So if anyone in the audience has experience using Sony cameras as Zoom webcams, share your experience. Or learn from Nick's experience. And I have one other question. If I want to record just the output of the Camlink 4K, just to a nice file, it comes with some like gaming capture software that's designed to do a whole bunch of stuff. It just feels like overkill, and it didn't seem very performant. So if I just want, instead of having to record to the SD card, if I just want to record to my computer, what's the quickest, dirtiest way just to record the HDMI out to my computer? If anybody has any suggestions, I'll take that as well. Yeah.
And maybe you have some, Griffin. I don't know.
I think that Final Cut would recognize a webcam.
I was just thinking that, and I don't want to do it right now because, well, let's just try it.
But I also wonder if Final Cut's able to recognize it. I wonder if even just QuickTime can like do a movie recording from it.
Would it be under import in Final Cut?
Oh no. So like, yeah, it'd be under import.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I see a camera.
And I'm in QuickTime now and realizing I think QuickTime would do it too. I think you do new movie recording, and then there's a little drop down next to the record button that shows you your different cameras.
QuickTime, new movie recording. Oh, look at that. Drop down. Hey, and it's black right now, but I think it doesn't like me having the Sony remote open at the same time. So I'll play with that later. But perfect. That's exactly what I needed, the QuickTime thing. And since it's Apple, it should hopefully leverage all the hardware encoding features to keep it from totally crapping out my system. Sweet.
It won't stop the camera from turning off.
Yeah. All right. Well,
I'm sorry that happened.
That's it's no big deal. Everything else about the presentation went well, so I was happy.
That's good. I would just love the performance review where they're like, "Nick, you gotta get a camera that works."
I've had a Logitech webcam on pre-order since May, and it's just still not in stock. So I don't know what's going on with that. If you got any friends at B&H, I placed that order there a long time ago. Just pull some strings for me.
I noticed someone asked me about USB mics the other day, and I was like, "Oh yeah, I have a few USB mics that I might recommend. Let me go check them out." And every USB mic on B&H is sold out.
Yep.
It's the world.
All right, my friend, that's all I got. I'm sorry, I think I ran a little long on you there, but I get excited about Apple stuff.
People like our nice beefy episodes.
And this was a beefy one. And thanks for doing an episode without me last week.
Yeah,
that was hurtful.
It'll average out. I did a short episode without you this week. I did a long episode with you this week.
Oh, okay. I did think of one more funny thing about Apple. I was listening to some podcasts, and Apple is promoting the iPhone 12 Pro Max. I have to think about those names. They're horrible. iPhone 12 Pro Max as having 5x of zoom. Okay, which sounds impressive, but then you realize they're taking that not from the normal camera, which they call 1x in the camera app, but from the super wide angle lens that they call 0.5x. So 0.5x to 2.5x, they're calling a 5x zoom range, which it is. I mean, they're not wrong, but when you say it's got 5x zoom, you kind of expect to be able to zoom in 5x optically from the normal. Would you agree?
Like in the OS, it'll actually say 2.5. Probably.
In the OS, it says 2.5. In the marketing, they're calling it 5x.
Yeah.
Anyway, it just reminded me, and I won't give the details, but back in high school, we took the ACT tests, and you told me, you got, I think, a couple points higher than me as your score, and you told me that my score was now 0, and that you got a couple points higher, which was infinitely better, and that reminds me of what Apple did. You kept saying that for a long time, that you were infinitely smarter than me because of that. I don't know if you recall that, Griffin.
I do recall that. And it was when I really learned how numbers and statistics could lie about anything if you present them the right way.
Lies, damn lies, and statistics. Okay, and now I'm really done. Thank you for indulging me in that little story.
I apologize. I'm not infinitely smarter than you. You, in fact, are infinitely smarter than me on many topics.
A single tear rolls down my face. All right, buddy.
It was good talking to you.
Good talking to you. And we will talk to you all later. I'll look forward to your comments about my Sony overheating and calling me a fool, which I am. Goodbye.
What's going on? Is your camera off?
Yeah, my computer's screwed up.